We all pay taxes, whether directly or indirectly. But imagine you buy something, and on top of the regular tax, there's another charge. An extra tax. Not because you broke a rule, but because that product crossed a border. This extra charge has a name, tariff, and it can quietly change prices, politics, and even the power of entire nations. Let's deep dive the topic tariff. The extra taxes.
Hi there. You are watching Mind Fuel.
Let's make this simple. A normal tax is something you pay inside your own country, like income tax, GST, VAT. That money usually goes straight to your government. But a tariff? That's basically an extra tax placed on goods coming from another country. Think of it like two toll gates, one at your home country and another one at the border. The second toll, that's the tariff. Example, if you're buying an imported car, the price you see already includes a regular tax, plus this hidden border tax. Sometimes, you don't even realize it's there. You just think the product is expensive. So why would any country do this? One reason is to protect local businesses. Imagine you run a small shoe factory in your town. Suddenly, super cheap shoes start flooding in from abroad. They're so cheap, you can't compete. Without some protection, your business and the jobs it provides could vanish. Tariffs act like a shield. By making imported products a bit more expensive, they give local businesses a fighting chance. It's like a boxing match. You don't let a heavyweight fight a featherweight without some kind of handicap. Here's our car example, imported cars. Let's say a foreign car costs $20,000 in its home country. Without tariffs, it might sell for around the same price in your country. But if your government adds a 30% tariff, suddenly it's $26,000. That price jump can make local cars look more attractive to buyers, keeping the local auto industry alive. But tariffs aren't just about protecting shopkeepers. They can also be used as weapons in something called a trade war, a kind of economic chess match where countries try to outmaneuver each other without firing a single bullet. Here's the basic playbook. Using tariffs as a tool. Countries sometimes raise tariffs to put pressure on another country during trade disputes. Balancing the trade scale. Higher tariffs can reduce imports and help improve a country's trade position. Impact on currency value. Tariffs can influence a country's currency strength, which then affect how expensive or cheap products become internationally. One of the most famous recent examples? The US-China trade war that erupted in 2018. The US imposed tariffs on Chinese steel, aluminum, and thousands of everyday goods. China retaliated with tariffs on US soybeans, cars, and even certain luxury products. The fallout was huge. US farmers saw soybean exports to China collapse, leaving silos full of unsold crops and farm incomes plummeting. Chinese factories faced rising costs because they depended on American machinery, high-tech components, and specialized parts. Ordinary consumers in both countries started paying more for things like washing machines, clothing, and smartphones. And here's the kicker. Trade wars rarely have a clean winner. It's like cutting off your enemy's supply lines while also slicing into your own. Both sides take damage, just in different ways. Now here's where tariffs get even more interesting and a little tricky. Let's say a rich country and a smaller, developing country both impose a 25% tariff on imported goods. On paper, that sounds fair, but in reality, the effects can be wildly different depending on each country's currency strength. If the smaller country has a weaker currency, that 25% price jump feels way bigger to consumers. Imported goods are already pricey because of exchange rates, and a new tariff pushes them into unaffordable territory. Here's an example. In the US, with a strong dollar, a $1,000 laptop becomes $1,250 after the tariff. Irritating, but still manageable for many buyers. In a weaker economy, the same laptop might already cost the equivalent of $1,400 due to exchange rates. Add a 25% tariff, and it jumps to nearly $1,750, way out of reach for the average household. This can create an unexpected twist. Sometimes tariffs actually help weaker economies by making foreign products too expensive, which boosts demand for locally made goods. But it's a double-edged sword. If that country relies heavily on imported raw materials, the higher cost can cripple its own industries instead of protecting them. So why doesn't every country just crank tariffs sky high and win the trade game? One word: dependency. Think about oil. If your country imports 90% of its oil from a single nation and you suddenly add a huge tariff, you might earn more per barrel, but you'll also send fuel prices soaring. Higher transport costs will ripple through the economy, making everything from vegetables to movie tickets more expensive. Or take rare earth minerals, essential for making smartphones, wind turbines, and electric car batteries. Only a handful of countries control most of the global supply. If you depend on them, raising tariffs could lead to shortages that paralyze your manufacturing sector. Even the biggest economies, the US, China, and the EU, tread carefully here. Today's supply chains are like a global spider web. Touch one thread, and the tremor is felt everywhere. Tariffs aren't just a tax. They're a negotiating weapon, a piece of geopolitical leverage. In a world where every country depends on others for something, tariffs can protect you, pressure your rivals, or backfire completely. Here's a fun twist. Not all tariffs are about making money or protecting industries. Sometimes they're pure politics. A country might raise tariffs suddenly during a diplomatic dispute, not because they need the revenue, but because it sends a strong message. We can make life harder for you. For example, in past disputes, countries have targeted very specific goods for tariffs, like wine, cheese, or luxury cars, knowing it will hit politically sensitive regions in their rival nation. It's like a game of chess. You don't just attack randomly. You aim for the pieces that hurt the most. So, tariffs, they might sound like boring tax talk, but in reality, they're powerful levers that move prices, politics, and power on a global scale. They can protect jobs, start wars without weapons, and shift the balance of economic strength between nations. Next time you hear about tariffs in the news, remember, it's not just about numbers on paper. It's about everyday products, people's jobs, and sometimes the balance of world power. Now tell me, have you ever noticed a price jump because of international news or policy changes? Drop your story in the comments. If you find this video informative, hit that like button, share it across your curious friends, and subscribe to the channel to support me. This is Mind Fuel.